Hello, beautiful people. My name is Athol, and this is The Chain of Seduction. And today what I'm going to talk about is love. Just plain old, boring old, simple old love. And I want to talk about it because one of the criticisms or complaints I've had over the years is that by describing exactly how relationships work, going into the biology of things, explaining the three love systems and saying it's all about testosterone and estrogen and dopamine and oxytocin, that I am somehow destroying the concept of love itself. If the only thing people feel for each other is a bunch of hormones and neurochemicals, and is it really real? Is it really love? And I understand that perspective because when you first read about it or hear about it, this is all very shocking and mind-blowing, and it makes you rethink your whole life and how you got to this point. But something I've really thought about over the last few days is that rather than destroying the concept of love, what it does is something far more profound. Because what it really does is it proves that love is normal, that love is the default setting for us. If you're a normal, healthy human being, you have three love systems that are part of your internal biology that are driving you to seek out, people to be in relationships with, seeking out the opposite sex. Love is normal. Love is your default setting according to your biology. And that's incredibly exciting and reassuring thought to have. I mean, because you just think of it in terms of like the desert island experience. If we dropped on a desert island a normal healthy man and a normal healthy woman, we would not be at all surprised if they started falling in love with each other, forming an attachment with each other, starting to have sex with each other, and basically creating a relationship. Just that sense of attraction would start kicking in, that sense of bonding would kick in, and the person that is there and the sex kicks in. Love is normal. Love is the default setting. We would not be shocked if two people on a desert island started up a relationship. It would be normal, and it's normal for us every day of our lives too. And because love is normal, to actually really dislike the opposite sex or find them or hold them in contempt or hate them, that really requires some degree of focus and effort and work. And I get totally that you can have bad experiences that hurt you and wound you, and that can make you angry and mad, but there's always this default setting, this influence, this pull back towards loving them and wanting to be in a relationship. So to actually get yourself in a mindset where you are completely repulsed by the opposite sex and you hate them, that usually requires a fair degree of focus and work. It requires effort to hate, far more effort to hate than it requires to love someone, because love is the default. You're rewarded for loving. You have to go against your biology to hate. And I think this goes some way too to explaining some of the questions of like, why am I a nice guy? Why am I a good girl? Why am I a people pleaser? Well, for the most part, it's probably your own biology. You probably have a fairly high degree of oxytocin or vasopressin. You connect easily. You trust easily. You like people. You have empathy. You care for people. And it's normal to want to please them and get along and be social and agreeable. That is all normal. And sure, absolutely, there can be dysfunctional things about that, and there's certainly, if you are doing a whole bunch of nice things and loving people that are really bad for you and are toxic in some way, then yeah, it's a problem. But having that default setting of being agreeable and liking people and caring about them, having empathy, that's normal, that's healthy, it's good. Not having that sense of empathy, not having that sense of connection, well, this is what makes, sociopaths and psychopaths. And I find one of the hardest things to do when I'm coaching someone is the situations where they're a genuinely nice person and they're in a relationship with someone who is clearly horrible, has some real personality issues, is doing horrible things, is cheating on them, is abusing them, whether that's physical or verbal or whatever. I mean, genuinely horrible people where my advice to them is you really do need to leave this relationship or defend yourself in some way. it's incredibly difficult to break through to these people that they need to stop loving them. They need to pull away. They need to defend themselves because they have this huge internal drive to connect and love. Love is normal. Love is the default. It's natural and we are rewarded for it by our own bodies. And I think this also plays into the idea that, relationships are hard work. And I'm not really sure that's true. What actually strikes me is how durable relationships are, how much they survive things where bad things are happening, where there's major negative life events, and yet somehow the relationships continue on. And it can take, multiple hits and changes before someone wants to be divorced and just doesn't love anymore and wants to leave, but it usually requires more than one critical incident. When I'm talking to people who are wanting to divorce or their partners wanting to divorce, it's not one thing that set them off. It is usually a whole string of events. Relationships and love tend to be extremely durable. If someone does love you or has loved you at some point and they have a normal libido and they have a normal ability to pair bond and they have a normal in-love system where they get the dopamine hit and they have all this biology propelling them into a relationship with you, often it requires enormous work to overcome their desire to love you. Often requires an extended period of disinterest in them, an extended period of contempt. It requires multiple instances of critical moments of neglect to finally have them to get to the place where they just throw their hands up in the air and don't want to be with you. So I think in many ways relationships are much easier than we really give them credit for. In fact, they may be a little too easy. And that's what helps us take them for granted and just assume that they're going to survive. We're just going to assume they will survive without watering them a little bit, without tending to them. The truth is they're pretty durable. And often one of the things I'm finding when I'm coaching people, when I'm telling people what to do, is that they are often quite surprised at how easy sometimes the process for fixing a relationship is. A lot of it has to do with stopping doing the things that were actively repulsing their partner. Stopping the fights about nothing, stopping the awful, total lack of leadership, stopping the lack of attention to your health and fitness and personal appearance. A lot of it is just stopping negative things, stopping the things that are destroying love, rather than going out of your way to create 7 amazing things that's going to create love. For the most part, they already love you. And you don't need to work amazingly hard when you're with someone who is normal and healthy, because their own body agenda is going to propel them into wanting a relationship, into wanting to connect, into wanting to be with you, and having a libido and looking for some sort of sexual connection. Oftentimes the solution is just to stop all the negative stuff, stabilize things, and let biology of your partner and yourself reconnect in terms of love, slowly reestablish the foothold in the relationship, and go on to create positive relationship momentum. Love is normal. Love is the default. Love is powerful. It is durable. And many things can be fixed from even fairly dark places. The one caveat to all of this, of course, though, is that there are some truly broken people out there. Do not get me wrong with this. I'm not some sort of airy-fairy, love is just everything. I totally understand there's some broken people out there who are very damaged, who are going to lash out and all sorts of stuff. But if you're with someone who's basically healthy, and you're basically healthy, and you're both basically normal, it is not at all surprising that love exists, that there is love between you, that you have a relationship, and that things can be fixed and made better. Anyway, gonna leave it there. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, all that good internet stuff. And I'll talk to you tomorrow.